Okay. Hi, everybody. It's Natalie from Creative Makers. I am sitting here with my friend and pro photographer, Louis Felix.
Hello, everybody.
Louis. And I wanted to let you know, I've known Louis for a very long time. My brother and he are best friends. And so this is a lifelong friendship here.
Yeah. Known each other for a while.
Yeah, you shot my wedding,
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're going to talk to him about what he does and how he does it, and here we go. All right, so first question and the only question, basically, until we form things up.
Uh-huh.
I want to know what it was like being a creative kid. Did you see your creativity come out when you were little?
Yeah, definitely. I think, I was one just like yourself of 5 kids. I was the middle kid, and,
Just like Michael.
Yeah,
That's
just like
crazy.
Yeah, just like Michael, your brother. So I think, getting attention was kind of a challenge, right? So, everybody is 5 kids are desiring attention. So one of the ways I got attention was to be creative, to draw, be silly, comedy, but I really loved like creating things. I always like drawing and painting. And so obviously that got attention. I think, in school, being an artist was kind of attention getter, and people would notice, my drawings or whatever I was making at the time. So yeah, I think that was part of it. I think, being one of 5 kids,
How did that, so was it mostly drawing that you were gravitating towards?
Yeah, I loved to make people laugh. That was, another attention getter. And then, I like to be creative and make things. And so I started, drawing, and I always liked to paint. And so yeah, I was drawing and painting at the beginning.
So it just sort of showed up in a whole bunch of different ways.
Yeah. And, growing up in a Latino Hispanic family, art wasn't, important or wasn't stressed, or, we never went to a museum. So it was kind of a self, exploration of reading about art and looking at art books and going to the library, and, no internet back then, obviously. So yeah, it was just, learning about all these artists, and, but, around the house there, art wasn't a thing,
Did your parents have an opinion about it? Like, did they tell you don't do it? Or,
No, they were very supportive. I mean, they would, buy me paints and canvases and whatever I wanted. They encouraged me. They never discouraged me. It just wasn't, a thing. It was just like, but they did always support me if I wanted to go to Aaron Brothers and buy some paint and canvases or pencils or whatever. They would never take me to an art museum or show me art or anything like that. So, yeah.
How did you decide to did you go to Art Center right out of high school?
No, it was kind of a long journey.
I was going to say, I don't remember you being that focused.
Yeah, well, I wasn't.
Well, there we go.
I don't think I was ever that focused. So in high school, I loved taking a bunch of art classes, and I took a bunch of photo classes. And God bless my art teacher, Mrs. Scharf, wherever you are. She really, really encouraged me and inspired me to go to Art Center. She one day she would say, hey, she would always like call me and take me to into the pottery room, and she would always show me these scholarships, like you gotta enter this contest, you gotta do this, and she just really believed in me.
She saw something.
She saw something. Yeah, it was awesome. She was close to retirement age, and it wasn't like she was, up on the latest and the greatest, art, but she really found something in me, and so she got me a scholarship to our Art Center Saturday High, which was the Saturday school for for high school kids. And so, you know, I drove up there on my moped and my artboard, which was just almost impossible. I was like, you know, holding it while I was flying away. So that was like my beginning experience at Art Center, and I just felt like I didn't belong there just because everybody was so, you know, amazing and talented, and I just felt like I was not worthy. But
Hi again. Sorry, you guys. Obviously, Wi-Fi problems. Not your fault, mine. Okay, so here I'm back. I was asking you about making the jump from drawing and painting to photography.
Yeah. So a couple things happened. The first thing is I started to get into oil painting, around 15. Which was an experience, as you know. It takes forever for them to dry, and it was really, you know, frustrating waiting around to be able to you know, work the oils. So I started going to acrylics, and that was obviously a lot faster. But when I was 16, I bought a camera from one of my friends who I was working with, and it was like an old Minolta XG1, and I really enjoyed the you know, the instantaneous feel of like creating a new image right away. So instead of working in oil painting for days, there was something really gratifying about just changing a perspective and shooting a new picture. So the love for photography kind of overtook the painting, you know.
Yeah.
And again, it was still film back then. It was all black and white and color. So you know, there wasn't the instant gratification of looking at the back of the LCD screen, but, you know, something kind of magical about just, you know, changing a perspective or changing an angle. And so, yeah, so I fell in love with photography, and that's what I really studied in junior college. I went to East LA College, and then I went to PCC. Actually, I went to PCC, Pasadena City College first. And then I went to ELAC, East LA College, and then, you know, was building my portfolio up. Yeah. So when my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, as you know, Stephanie, she was off to UC Irvine, and we were talking about getting married, and she's like, well, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? How are you going to support the family? And I was like, oh, shoot, good question, you know, like.
That's right. I might have to participate in that part.
So I'm like, gosh, you know, I wanted to do something I loved, and you know, art and photography was it. You know, I couldn't see myself doing anything else, or anything else that I was good at. So that's kind of why I decided to kind of, you know, work on my portfolio and then apply to Art Center, and I got in, you know, with a small scholarship, but, you know, it was kind of scary because it was so expensive, and I was basically the first one in my family out of 5 kids to go to college, to art school, so.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so, yeah, and, you know, Art Center at the time was expensive. I mean, I can't imagine going now, but, you know, God bless my parents, they, you know, they didn't have much. So I remember when I first started, they gave me like a check for $5,000, and that was everything that they, you know, they could afford. So anyways, yeah. And so, and I blew that 5,000 in like seconds, you know, in minutes after buying, you know, camera equipment and paper and rolls of film and developer and stuff like that. Yeah. So. Oh
my gosh. So just for those of you that are on here, this school keeps coming up over and over again. A lot of the people I've interviewed have either gone to Art Center, are teachers at Art Center, had some involvement in Art Center, taking classes at Art Center. Art Center College of Design is a school in Pasadena. They are really renowned. They're known for their work with car designers and graphic artists, but also equally painters and all kinds of stuff. It's a really a big deal school. It's nestled in the foothills of Pasadena, and so a lot of people in this area, in my area, have either gone there, touched there, or somehow been there.
Yeah. So it was a great experience. It was it was a commercial school in terms of, the founding, the founder of Art Center really wanted to train artists commercially. And so he felt that that was really important. So I felt like it was a good balance between, fine art and commercial, photography and art and stuff. So yeah, it was a great experience and I learned so much. When I first was considering going to this expensive art school, I took two photographers out to lunch. One photographer went to Art Center, a guy named Patrick House, and I took another photographer who was self-taught. And I said, hey, I'm considering going to this, really expensive art school. What do you think? And so Patrick House said, look, you're going to learn so much in these 3 years at Art Center. You're going to spend money, but the opportunities, the connections that you're going to make, you're not going to get anywhere else. So I definitely recommend, spending the money and going to this art school. The other guy, Michael Paris, who was self-taught, he said, no, don't spend all that money. Buy some equipment, He's like, just learn and make money at the same time. And he's like, you can buy equipment really cheap because, a lot of photographers are drug addicts and, they sell their equipment. And I'm like, oh, great. So, so I was kind of like at this crossroads. Do I spend the money and get in debt and, go to Art Center or do I try and assist other photographers and make my way and so to me, I obviously made the investment and I'm glad I did,
That was such a smart thing on your part though, to actually take two artists with two different points of view or two different starting points anyway. Yeah. And actually take the time to interview them and ask them, what their journey was like and what they recommend.
Yeah, I teach now. I don't think people know. I'm a teacher. And I teach at a community college, Mount San Antonio College. And I always tell my students, it's like, make the phone call, send the email to people, ask them to lunch, like I did. It was $50, lunch. Everybody likes to go to lunch, right? Everybody likes good food.
They like to eat.
Yeah, they like to eat.
They need to eat.
Yeah, and it's amazing. I always tell my students, like myself, it's like, when people hear that you're a student and you need help, people will either do two things. They'll either tell you, get lost, kid, I'm busy, or they'll bend over backwards for you. And it always blows me away how people don't understand that. I mean, students don't understand that. I do that even to this day. I still reach out to people and say, can I take you to lunch? And it's the best way to, make connections and get information, if over COVID, like a bunch of my other fellow photographers, all of our jobs got canceled. So I decided to reach out to all these photographers, and ask them if I could interview them like you're doing right now on Zoom. Yeah.
And how much did you learn?
Oh, tons. Yeah.
Exactly.
And I reached out to some huge names. Dan Winters is one of the biggest commercial photographers in America. Nick Brandt, who's a great fine art photographer / wildlife photographer. And I said, hey, I'm a teacher and I'd love to interview you. And they all did, they all said yes. A couple of them had apprehensions, that shall be, nameless, but yeah, I mean, people are usually there to help. And, if you knock on that door, so anyways, that's always been a mantra of mine is like, you don't knock, you don't receive, so, so that I did that when I went to Art Center or before I went to Art Center and the guy who told me to go to Art Center, this guy named Patrick House, ended up, hiring me to be his assistant, and I worked with him, and he referred me a bunch of jobs, all because of that one.
I was just gonna say, so because you took him to lunch and he got to know you and he saw that you were serious, it was almost like he wanted to lend a hand and just like help pull you up.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And he gave me thousands and thousands and thousands. He still every once in a while I'll get a random job from him, as a referral, And going back to what he said, it's like you're going to make connections at Art Center, and I did. I met some great photographers, and when they couldn't do a job, they would say, "Hey, call this friend of mine." One friend of mine, Rachel Weil, who's a wonderful natural light photographer, she hated using flash or strobes or whatever. She knew I knew how to use like flash on camera flash, and so she referred me to the LA Times Sunday magazine.
I was just going to get to that because
Yeah.
I wanted to know how, what were your first jobs like coming out of school?
Yeah, it's scary because you're getting out of school, you have all these student debts that you have to pay off, and so my last semester at Art Center, I started shooting weddings and second shooting with a big photographer in Beverly Hills, and so I got to use kind of on-camera flash. Well, my friend Rachel Weil, didn't like to use that on-camera flash, and the LA Times Sunday magazine would send her out to cover these celebrity events, and she didn't like it because she had to use this flash. And so she referred me to the LA Times magazine, and me and a writer, Mark Ehrman, would like go to all these great celebrity events, and I would cover them, and we'd interview like Tom Hanks and all these huge celebrities, and I would just take their pictures using flash. I mean, it wasn't like creative photography. It was very kind of,
I have to tell you how tickled I always was to open up the LA Times to the student, because I would see it happen in the Sunday section, and there'd be a picture, and underneath it'd say, photo by Louis Felix.
Yeah.
And so
it was great.
It was awesome.
Yeah, it was, I did that for like a year and a half or 2 years or so. Just going to these like, parties and meeting all these celebrities and getting goodie bags and having fun. It was very low tech and not very creative, but it was an opportunity to make money, which was priority number one. And my wife liked all the goodie bags from the parties. I'd come home at like 1 or 12:31, 2 in the morning, and she'd be like, "Shh, you're making all this noise," and I say, I would tell her, "Oh, I got you a goodie bag," and she'd get up like, "Oh, really?" And she'd like turn on the light and she's like, "Oh, MAC lipstick," and so it was great for her because most of the goodie bags were geared towards women. So
so she got lucky.
Yeah, she not much, Yeah.
There was definitely a perk there.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, and then as I grew my business, I would do anything and everything to make a buck, which I'm still doing,
I mean, do you find besides teaching, how are you doing? Mostly weddings or events? Or?
I'm doing a little bit of everything. I shoot, I'm doing some commercial work for like Kaiser Permanente, for various hospitals. I do a lot of medical. I do some, attorney law stuff, portraits mostly of attorneys. Everything and anything. One day, I'm shooting for Children's Hospital. Another day I'm shooting, an attorney. Another day I'm shooting a surgeon for Kaiser Permanente. So I'm still, active commercial photographer, and I teach also. So that's a big part of my income now. So, which I love,
I was just going to say, how do you like teaching? Because some people really love it, and some people are just like, that's not for me.
Yeah. Well, it's, I teach at a high school, at Charter Oak High School in Covina, and I full-time, and then I teach at Mount Sac at night, and then I still shoot commercially. So it's a big balance, it's a lot,
It's a lot of time.
It's a lot of time, yeah. And at the high school, there's a lot of like class management, because you're basically dealing with, kids,
Even though they want to be there? I mean,
well, you would think, that's the,
because I always think of charter schools as the kids really want to be.
No, it's not a charter school. It's just called Charter Oak High School. But yeah, it's a public high school. It's a regular, so it's not a charter.
Not the same.
Yeah, it's not the same. So yeah, it's an elective, and sometimes they need like a technology, class. So, because, we learn Photoshop and Illustrator and stuff. So, I always tell my kids, like, look, would you rather be here, or would you rather be in, like, math, you know, or algebra or whatever, you know, science, and they're like, yeah, you know, so, and you know, I hope one of the things I always tell them is like, I still love art. I'm still passionate about art. I'm going to galleries. I'm always constantly looking online. So, you know, compared to my teachers that, you know, kind of had checked out, I'm still passionate, and I'm still shooting. I'm still a working photographer. So, and I'll show them jobs that I do, and tell them, you know, how I got the job, you know, what were some of the challenges, you know, all that stuff that I think they enjoy, because it's like, well, this guy's making money doing this. He's not just a teacher that's, you know, learned it in school but never applied it. So yeah. And sometimes I'll take days off just to do a job, you know, I'll take a day off to work. Yeah. Cause I'll make, you know, 5 times the amount or 6 times the amount of what I would make.
If you didn't have to worry about money and jobs and stuff, what kinds of things would you end up shooting? I mean, what's the thing that you love to do?
I always think about that, if like money was not an object. Well, you know, I've during COVID, I began this personal project that I had started way back at Art Center, photographing like Latino artists and musicians and mariachis and folklorico dancers and flamenco dancers. So I would probably, you know, if money was no object, I would probably, you know, travel down to Mexico and you know,
like shoot this stuff from the source.
Yeah, from the source. Yeah, I mean, not that. You know,
I mean, people that do it here are the source,
but go down to Mexico and maybe shoot in some of the environments that, you know, the old plazas, and you know, that would probably, you know, be awesome to really, because my mom's from Mexico, but I've only been to, you know, where she's from, which is the Sonoran part, you know, next to Arizona. But I haven't been down to Mexico City or, you know, some Jalisco or, you know, Michoacan.
There's so many places.
Yeah. So
many places.
Yeah, that would probably be like a book project I would love to do if money was no object. But yeah. So anyways, yeah. That's
good.
Yeah. Also, another project, I would probably finish a project that I started like 10 years ago, which is photographing kids and teenagers with autism, you know, so I'd probably continue that project, you know, because I started that project, and it started off with a personal project of me photographing my son and his journey with autism and stuff. So I started to kind of go around the country, you know, meeting different families with kids with autism, and I would photograph them, and I wanted to make a book project, but, you know, ran out of money. And
you know what I think is really interesting is that you transitioned to photography because it was more immediate, yet you have these really long-term projects that aren't immediate at all.
No, yeah, that's the irony of it. You know, I wanted to have this instantaneous, like, okay, I'm going to switch. But yeah, now I have these big projects that are, you know, have the same theme, but, you know, it's very time consuming.
Yeah. I love both of these ideas though.
Yeah. So
especially the one around autism.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if there's that's really happening from like an artist's point of view.
Yeah. Well, I started this project, with I converted a digital camera, DSLR, to only shoot infrared light, not thermal infrared, like, you know, heat seeking, like you see the police helicopter flying over, and you see this little, it basically photographs the infrared light that we don't see in infrared. We don't see infrared light. So I converted this camera, and it has this really kind of special, almost ethereal quality to it, where, you know, skin tones glow and foliage glows. So it's kind of a unique perspective, and kind of, I saw the...
Is that what aura cameras do? Have you ever
been
to like a metaphysical airfare, and they like, let me take a picture of your aura?
Probably, yeah. I saw that in oh God, where was it in Arizona? Sedona, of all
Yeah.
places. Yeah, they had the, I kind of chuckled because it's, probably an infrared camera.
That's really interesting.
Yeah,
I never
yeah.
even thought about it. I
Yeah.
always wondered how they were getting that done.
Yeah.
I never thought to even ask.
Yeah, I think that's what they're using. I can imagine because it kind of looks very similar, Yeah.
So what do you have to do to the camera to manipulate it to make it do like infrared?
So
read
you,
infrared.
you basically send it to. I sent it to this company in Washington, and what they do is, I guess every DSLR camera has what's called a high pass filter over the sensor. I don't know exactly the whole, technical aspect of it, but what they do.
You can't tell me which screws.
Yeah, no. So they basically take that high pass filter off, and then it'll record infrared light.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
It sounds sort of simple.
It is. I wouldn't do it myself because I don't know what I'm doing, but it was about $300, and I converted 2 cameras, and so I would travel, around the country. I went to Boston, New Mexico, Maryland, New York, Chicago.
And so you were using this method only when you were photographing photographing the journeys. Look at that. The journeys of these autistic families and kids.
Yeah. So that's the camera I was using for that. It has a kind of, it's so unique. It kind of wouldn't translate, I don't think, to the commercial world because of just the, you got to be careful because sometimes when you photograph like somebody looking into the camera, their eyes kind of almost go black. So it
can be creepy.
Yeah, exactly. So, for a commercial camera, I don't think it would be ideal. Those cameras were specifically for that project. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I like that you had specific gear for it.
Yeah,
Like nothing else was appropriate or
yeah. Well, the similarities, with autism, there's a spectrum, right? Mm-hmm. There's a spectrum, and in light, there's also a spectrum, from, infrared to all types of light, and we don't see the infrared light. We see only a little sliver of it, and I kind of like the parallel to kids with autism. They see the world differently than a neurotypical person would. So, and we don't see the world through their eyes. So they have a unique perspective, just like this camera only shoots infrared light.
I love that parallel.
Yeah, I thought it was, and the project was called Spectrum, because autism has a spectrum, light has a spectrum. So I kind of like the parallel there. Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah.
You've got to finish this.
Yeah, I know I have to, and going back to if money was no issue, Yeah. So if I had like an infinite amount of money, I would probably continue those 2 projects and travel and finish those book projects up. So if anybody wants to donate,
exactly,
$100,000.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, maybe not that much. It could be 50,000. Yeah.
As I said, I've got $2.
Yeah.
Use it wisely.
Yeah, we use it wisely. Yeah.
Can you show us? Do you want to show us a few things? Do you think your iPad's working?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to show it. Let me see.
I know that you and I talked and you're like, I don't have any of my work printed because it's all digital now. But I mean, I see stuff that you shot of people personally around here.
Yeah, not really. Let me see. Oh my.
Dealing with technology.
I know. That's terrible.
By the way, sorry that we jumped off and then jumped back on. Of course, Wi-Fi issues.
Yeah, this is not working so well.
I know that these are pictures of your family, but I happen to know that you did this.
Yeah.
Here, we're going to talk about this. This is his daughter.
My son.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh my God. Oops.
Yeah.
But it's a really beautiful shot. I love the sun coming through the neck, and the colors are really vibrant. And just the perspective from the playground atmosphere. I mean, it's just it's really incrable.
I don't think I'm going to be able to.
I don't even see Gavin in this picture.
No, that's Aaron.
It's Aaron.
That's my 11-year-old, but had long hair at the time. Yeah. Unfortunately, this iPad isn't working, but yeah,
Well,
sorry
let's
about
talk
that.
about them. Let's talk about like when you're shooting pictures, everybody's got their own way of seeing things. So, I mean, are you looking at particular angle? I know that this varies from depending on the job and what's going on. But I mean, in order, let's say you're shooting a wedding. I mean, there's definite things that the bride and groom expect to see.
Yeah.
Do you like to surprise them with things that maybe they're not expecting to see?
Yeah, I mean, it's weddings are, probably the hardest type of photography around. I've shot all different scenarios, but wedding photography is a challenge because everything has to, be in focus, exposed, and sharp or.
I think it's sort of overlooked as an art as well
totally,
because
yeah.
people are just thinking of it as very utilitarian.
Yeah.
I have to have my pictures for my wedding, and I could just hire anybody, or whatever.
Or there's the cheese factor from the traditional wedding photography of the 70s and stuff.
Cheese factor.
Yeah, but you're a documentary photographer, first and foremost, because you're documenting what's going on in front of you. You're a portrait photographer because you have to do nice portraits of the bride and groom or their families or whatever. And then, there's the creative side too, getting a unique perspective that, Uncle Joe or Uncle Harry isn't going to get to. But you're all these different types of photographers, and you're shooting, thousands of pictures and, where like, I've shot editorial photography. There's a question from Mark. I've shot an editorial magazine spreads where you'll have 3 hours to shoot at a beautiful restaurant on the west side, and you have to get one portrait of the owner, some food shots, and maybe a nice interior shot of but they run 3 or 4 pictures that you get in 4 hours. So with the wedding, every picture is super important, especially the family shots and stuff. So it's the hardest type of photography I've ever done, a lot of my friends who were photographers, when I first got out of school, they would, poo-poo it and say like, oh, you sold your soul to the devil. But, I was able to buy a house,
I was going to say, but wedding,
the house we're in here.
Wedding photography is consistent.
Yeah, and you can schedule it. And,
everybody that has a wedding, or most people that have a wedding, want to have it documented in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and at the height of my wedding career, I was shooting like 40 weddings a year.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was almost every weekend. So now it's it's totally different because of digital photography, and everybody's a wedding photographer, which is awesome because wedding or photography is accessible to everybody now, for a few $100, which as a photography teacher is awesome because everybody's excited and they can do it. They feel like they can take a stab at it. Yeah.
Do you think now with, everybody having basically a pretty good camera in their pocket, especially kids walking into a photography class, do you find that they're more prepared than like you were? Or is it just a different kind of prepared?
Yeah, it's different. There's still like we do a lot of assignments for the high school kids. We do a lot of assignments in the first semester on composition, and they use their cell phones because most of these kids have really great iPhones. In fact, I have like the oldest iPhone in my class. I'm on a 7, and most of these kids are on like 11s and 12s, which take awesome pictures. But just getting them to know, what a good picture is, but how do you take it and what perspectives and, the rules of composition, rule of thirds and, leading lines and all that stuff. But, they're still kind of lazy, they still like, I ask them to do 2 pictures a week and they're like, yeah, I just couldn't do it, you know. It's like,
But I went to the concert and
yeah,
I shot
yeah,
500 pictures and a
you
whole
know,
video.
and I got a bunch of cute shots of me going with duck flips, you know. So I'm like, you know, I asked you to go get like, you know, shoot 2 pictures with the theme of like long shadows, you know. It's like, well, yeah, I couldn't get around to it. So it gets frustrating because, you know, when I was in their shoes, right, we were in film cameras and we'd have to shoot a roll of film not knowing what we were going to get at all.
Right.
And you're
you,
like,
you were lucky if you
yeah,
got one or
and
two.
then you develop it and go like, oh, I didn't load the film right. I exposed everything or whatever. So, oh yeah, I mean the accessibility and the ease, you know, it's instant gratification. You know if you got a good shot or not. So yeah, it's a different world, you know. But and also these kids are a lot more sophisticated in terms of like photography because they see so much photography on Instagram. You know, where we were pulling out the, you know, the Life magazines and the, you know,
right,
you know,
because that's all we had.
yeah, Newsweek or Time, you know, that's the photo essays that we would see, you know. I mean, we'd see stuff on TV, but in terms of there was no social media, you know.
Are you blown away by sometimes some of the stuff you see on Instagram?
Yeah.
Like just unique
Yeah,
takes.
yeah, and you know, there's the blessing and the curse of that too. And it's, you know, when something becomes trendy, you know, people just jump on the bandwagon right away, and you know, it doesn't become unique anymore because of the accessibility. Like, you know, here's a trend, and you know, everybody's doing it, so it's like, oh, so we go through trends a lot faster.
So when you talk about trends in photography, tell me about what you think is like what has been trendy or is trending now, because I never think about photography in that way.
Yeah, well, I see it all the time. You know, there's certain, you know, looks where they might, you know, they might change all the tones, you know, to this brown kind of sepia look.
Oh, so skewing colors,
yeah.
skewing lines.
But I mean, you know, even in like lighting, you know, photographers, lighting styles, like one photographer might do something kind of interesting and put it on some kind of like strobist or lighting, you know, Instagram page, and then, you know, everybody's doing the same thing. So
But even when you talk about hundreds of people doing the same thing, it might be obvious to you because you're just seeing all the same photographers like jump on this thing. But
yeah.
I mean, in the big picture of millions of people.
Yeah. Well, also the thing, you know, the challenge nowadays with social media is, or like Pinterest and all these, you know, great sites where you can get information is kids get lazy now and students get lazy, and I'll say, oh, I'll give them an assignment and an objective. The first thing they'll do is just go to, you know, Instagram or Pinterest and, you know, find something, and they'll just kind of copy that. There's no
So they're looking for an inspiration, and more than just having it be inspiration, they're just taking it.
Yeah, I don't think they're even being inspired by it. I think they just like will see something and they'll just try and copy that. You know, so originalities, you know, and unique ideas, you know, can get, you know, it's easy. It's the path of least resistance.
But this is a problem for every teacher that asks for an essay to be written. You know, when they go ahead and plagiarize somebody else's work.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically what you're dealing with.
Yeah, true. I mean, you know, I've caught students just ripping straight off screenshots of YouTube videos. You know?
My God.
Yeah. I remember I gave an assignment my first year of teaching to do some kind of stop motion photo, and this one student turned in this beautiful shot of this paint splash with all these colors, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. And you know, everybody was high-fiving him. Wow, that was great, you know, so and so. And at the end of the day, this other kid comes into class and he goes, hey, remember that shot that so and so turned in? And he, on his iPhone, he presses like a YouTube video of the Slow-Mo brothers. I don't know, Slow-Mo guys? The Slow-Mo guys. And it's basically these guys who shoot with this crazy phantom camera that shoots, you know, a gazillion frames a second. And he basically just did a screenshot of that video and turned it in. So I'm like, sucker, you know.
Did you bust him?
Oh yeah. The next day he came in and I'm like, hey, so come here, check this out. And I pressed play on the video and it was that exact same, you know, video of the paint splashing. And then I stopped it right where he took the picture and I said, does that look familiar? And he just goes, yeah, you know, and so, you know, so where there's a will, there's a way. There's, so, yeah. So, you know, a lot of kids don't want to, you know, experiment and make mistakes nowadays. They just would rather just look for, okay, I got to copy that, you know.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you find with everybody having a camera in their pocket and everybody just, and social media and stuff, do you find that your work has lessened?
My work or everybody's work?
No, your work.
No, well, there's just so much more great work nowadays. So it's kind of like, you know, trying to be unique and different.
But I mean, you still get called and you still get. I mean,
oh, yeah.
Stuff, but I just wasn't sure whether you saw a shift.
No, I mean, you know, I think, not to sound cliche, but I mean, you know, if you're passionate about something like, you know, this projects that I've been working on, you know, people see that passion, you know, where, you know, somebody might make a great photograph, but, you know, you don't see the passion or you don't see the consistency in the project, you know, the long-term, you know, haul, so to speak, you know. So I remember interviewing a photographer, or not a photographer, a graphic artist named G. Lee. He was in New York. He lives in LA now, but he was talking about, he works for these big companies, and he said that, you know, his personal projects are what they really were impressed by because, you know, he was passionate about these personal projects. And he says, I didn't even have a portfolio of what they were looking for, but I showed him this portfolio of this work that I was passionate about. And he goes, they hired me because of that. They saw, you know, the passion. So I think, you know, if you're passionate, obsessed, or whatever you want to call it, I know a lot of the photographers that I interviewed and the artists I interviewed said it was, you know, fine line between, you know, passion and, you know, obsession, you know. So I think people will respond to that, you know, especially if, you know.
I think that's an excellent thing to remember, that your passion and excitement about things takes you really a long way. It takes you far.
Yeah.
It gets you into places that you wouldn't expect just because you love doing it.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, ideally those personal projects or those passion projects will, you know, get you noticed or get more work or whatever. And they have, you know, like the Folklorico project, the Latino Artist Project has, you know, kind of, you know, blossomed into this bigger thing. And I'm getting calls from, you know, different people and stuff. So it has paid off, you know, it has paid off. At first I was investing a lot of my own money and time, which, you know, a lot of photographers and artists do. But now, you know, I'm getting some commercial work from that. And you know, it's kind of, you know, spider webbed into a bigger project and more commercial jobs out of it. So, yeah. Hopefully, you know, it'll eventually, you know, get more work and I'll be able to photograph more artists and more dancers and stuff. So
do you ever think that or expect that you might want to ever go back to painting or drawing? Or
I've been thinking about it. Yeah, you know,
really?
I mean, well, as more of a hobby or a passion. And a form of enjoyment. I still love taking pictures, though. You know, like I'm fortunate in the sense where I still give myself these personal projects where a lot of my photographer friends don't shoot for themselves. You know, they kind of get stagnant around. I'm not going to pick up my camera unless I'm getting paid for it. It's like, I still love photography. I still get excited. You know, I still, you know, love seeing my, you know, these pictures that I take or I create or whatever, you know, come up with. I don't know. I just look around and I see like my friends who are really successful photographers, but just, they don't get excited anymore about their personal projects. And I think that's
too bad.
Yeah, I think it's kind of death, you know.
I was going to say, it's probably going to hurt them in the end.
Yeah, I just, you know, you just get burnt out, I guess. But, you know, you know, I still feel excited and passionate about it. So hopefully we'll see how long that lasts. Maybe it'll go back to painting. I don't know. A lot of my great friends that are artists are all painters, so maybe, you know, we'll join their club, you know.
Maybe so.
Yeah, like you.
Yeah, just like me.
Yeah. It's exciting to see your paintings all the time on Instagram and stuff. Yeah.
You.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Going back into your dad. Yeah.
Yeah.
He used to paint.
Yeah. That was a whole nother story.
Yeah. So anyways, yeah, so that's kind of that, you know, I hope to, you know, continue these projects and hopefully they'll, you know, evolve into, you know, shows or whatever, books, whatever. Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
I don't want to keep you here too much longer, but do you have any parting words for our audience about what you do, how you do it, anything?
Yeah. Well, you know, I always, you know, oh, that's a good question. Yeah. No, I mean, thank you for watching this. If you're watching this, I think we all, you know, love creating things. I mean, that's why, you know, we're here. You know, I have, like you guys have this desire to make things, and maybe it's express yourself or whatever it is, or share something beautiful with the world. But yeah, I just think it's a blessing, you know, to be able to be creative and to make stuff, you know, to make a photograph or to make a painting. I feel blessed. I mean, you know, like I feel like it's a God-given talent that, you know, I want to be constantly growing and using it and not get stagnant. So don't get stagnant, you know, try something, you know, make something, you know. I was listening to a documentary on John Cougar.
Mellencamp?
Mellencamp, yeah. And it was on Netflix, and he was just talking about, the guy is, you know, so talented, but he just talked about, you know, he has that desire in him to make something. If it's just write a lyric, you know, write a song, make a painting, he's a painter, or make something with his hands, you know, it's just, he feels that need to make and create. And so I think it's a beautiful thing, you know. I just went to New York and went to the Met with my daughter, who just graduated from high school. And it was amazing because we were just seeing all these things that people made throughout, you know, the last thousands of years. And it's like they had that same desire as me and you know, just to make stuff, whether it's like a piece of jewelry or a painting or, you know, a sculpture. And it's important, you know. I mean, it's in a museum, it's there, you know, for us to see and enjoy, and it's been enjoyed. So I think it's kind of a, you know, it's awesome, you know.
I think it's that funny thread that ties us all together,
Yeah.
you know, this creativity, creation,
Yeah.
coming from whoever the creator is or was,
Yeah.
you know, and that we're all moving in
Yeah.
that same way. We
Yeah.
can't help it.
We can't help it. I mean, look at the cavemen, you know, or not the paintings in France of the, you know, sketches of all those, you know, animals and stuff. People had this desire way back when to make stuff. So yeah, I think it's awesome. I think it's also a beautiful thing to hang out with artists too, because we kind of get each other, you know, we get like, you know, where I hang, you know, at the high school I hang around with, you know, the drama teacher and the art teacher and the ceramics teacher and the music teacher. And when we get together, it's just this fun time, and we all get each other, and it's like, you know, they don't find it weird that I, you know, go out to Joshua Tree to photograph, you know, whatever it is. And, you know, I don't find it weird that they spend, you know, a whole day trying to make you know, this pot with these glazes. It's like we all get each other, you know. It's like we all get, like, we're creative people, and we, you know, we want to make beautiful things.
Would you say that you're a gang?
Yeah. A cult. Yeah, a cult. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for sitting with me.
Yeah, thank you,
Appreciate
Natalie.
it
Yeah,
so much.
thank you guys. Yeah, I hope that was
Thank you.
interesting.
Tom Pino's watching. Do you remember the Pinos?
Yeah.
Yeah, Tom's watching.
Hey, how are you? Yeah.
All right.
Kiddo
Anyway,
family. Yeah.
thanks, guys. Thanks for being here, and we'll talk next week. See you later.